G'day folks and welcome to another episode of The Breakdown brought to you by Newstead Brewing. My name's Brendan Sauce Hotel from Queensland Rugby and joining me today, commentary regular, Jaybor Staunton. How are we, mate?
Living the dream, Sauce. Absolutely living the dream, especially after last weekend's footy. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Mate, that has got to be one of the best weekends of Prem Rugby footy, and not just in Prem grade, but across all the grades that I've seen in a long time, mate. And I think we can both agree that major semi-final between Brothers and GPS, mate, while the scoreline ended up sort of extending out a little bit, mate. It wasn't to the fact that there wasn't any team defending or anything like that. Just both teams were so on fire. It was an awesome game of footy.
Best game of Premier grade footy I've ever seen. I had the privilege of calling that one alongside Dal Murphy and Tommy Crispy from Jeeps, and it was absolutely awesome. The defense was massive. The attack was champagne. It was ridiculous, just the skill level of both those sides out there, and it's indicative of those two sides clearly being head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. That was the best game of club footy I've ever seen.
Mate, I know we spoke about heading into the finals that, we thought Brothers were potentially a bit shaky after a few results not going their way in the last few rounds of the season, and obviously a very narrow win over Easts in round 18. But, mate, they were on fire. How good were the young guns, mate? Joshy Flug, Byron Ralston absolutely stood up and delivered, mate.
Yeah, the youngsters were absolutely massive. Harry Wilson picked himself up a brace. Fraser McWright was awesome. I think Wilso actually had 4 or 5 offloads in the first 15 or 20 minutes, so he was back to his bad running best. Fraser McWright was everywhere. Matty Fessler picked up a try. As he does, he's just that awesome little link man as a hooker.
He didn't have to run from 60 out for this one.
No, but, 4 metres, 60 metres, who really cares when it comes to a hooker scoring a try, so
True.
Good on you, brother. But, no, it was absolutely awesome. They are such an amazing side, and that was 80 minutes of the best Brothers footy they could have played, and it was 80 minutes of some of the best footy Jeeps could have played. They weren't slouches out there. They were absolutely awesome themselves. They were probably guilty of not taking their opportunities as well as Brothers, but they were still good. They were still very, very good, and a credit to them. They lost by 8 points in an 88-point game. They were right in that.
No, they were, mate. And as you mentioned before, heading into that final sort of 5 minutes, mate, there's only a couple of points in it. Had Hegarty got the kick after Freddie Burke's try, they could have come back and scored again and knocked off Brothers. It went down to the wire. But I'll tell you where I reckon the difference was, mate. Brothers type 5. Gareth Ryan, as you mentioned, Fazler, Tom Maloney, they all stood up in the front row, mate. And the two locks, Brad Capper and Ryan Smith, between the two of them, that is the best game of footy I've seen those guys play all season.
Brad Capper's been absolutely awesome this season. He's very much like for like when it comes to Michael Wood. So you'd be excused to think that because when Michael Wood is available, Brad Capper comes off the bench, that maybe, he doesn't bring as much as, say, Ryan Smith does. They're two very different players. It's just that he's very much like Michael Wood, so they don't lose too much in Woody being out. And Brad Capper's been awesome. But Ryan Smith, that was probably his best game this year as well. He's been very good. He was very good at the start of the season. But that was awesome by him. They get through a mountain of work. Brad Capper gets into the tight stuff. Ryan Smith is absolutely massive around the fringes. They were so good. And look, I think as well, T-Bo Maloney, he underplays his hand so well in a stacked Brothers side. Doesn't have to do too much, but he's so experienced and just such a good leader that he knows how to get the best out of the young pups.
I reckon it's probably worth as well mentioning the halves. I thought Ruben Wall's service was excellent, and Saifaloy, while he didn't necessarily stand out, he performed so well as a distributor. He doesn't have to be the hero of the match. He's just got to, direct traffic and then let the guys outside of him tear it up, and going out the back to Lawson Crichton and letting him ball play in those sort of wider channels really paid off for him on the weekend.
Oh, hell yeah. They scored 21 seconds into the second half as a result of Paddy James, I think, going through that gap and then finding Lawson. That was absolutely supreme footy there. But Rowan Saifaloy, all year, you can't help but think he has been the perfect foil for what Brothers have needed. They didn't need a classy fly half. They've already got ball players in Stixie and Lawson Crichton and co. They just needed someone to be able to direct that traffic, as you said, and he's done that so well all year. And that was awesome by him on the weekend. Ruben Wall was getting absolutely monstered in the first 20 minutes. There was so much defensive ruck pressure coming through from the Gallopers. and he's so good at just withstanding. For only a small fella, he's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've spoken heaps about brothers. In terms of Jeeps, I think we can chat more about them as we preview the prelim final. So let's take a look at the other semi, the minor semi between UQ and East. Obviously, this was the knockout game, so plenty of pressure on these two teams heading in. And unfortunately for my Tigers, mate, they copped it from the Red Heavies boys, mate. The team that we thought that wouldn't make the finals came out and killed it.
This was a pizzling of the highest regard. UQ were absolutely on fire, and East played their worst game of the season. I've said all year, East are the most consistent team in the competition. They don't win by a lot, they don't lose by a lot. They're always in every single match. They can match it, be it up front or in the backs. But on the weekend, they just got absolutely smothered by UQ. There were some players in that team. Jock Campbell is a genuine freak. That try he scored is the best try of the season. And you want to know what that try was very reminiscent of in the way they're playing? Sauce in 2015. I remember Chris Sortia got himself a try, swooped on it, fended a couple blokes and ran 60 or 70 odd metres, and Jock Campbell did exactly that. So a lot of similarities, coming in at fourth and being able to potentially go all the way and absolutely being on fire, but they were so good on the weekend.
Man, I reckon what we sort of started to see late in that game as well was a bit of combinations coming back. If you see that second try Jock scored, it was off like a triple cutout from Tate. Tate darted from the base of the ruck and went looking for Jock. Knew where he was out back. He sliced through, scored that brilliant try. And then, in the forwards, mate, Adam Korchek, that's probably the best game of footy I've seen him play in years. He was, at his physical best.
Oh, big time. He's the big Swedish Terminator. Like, he should be absolutely just dominating sides when he gets out in Premier Rugby, and he can go missing a little bit. You see glimpses of it when he gets in space or he belts a bloke or whatever it may be, and you'd love to see him do it more. And it seems on the weekend they finally had that balance right where they're able to unlock him, Pat Murray, and Sam Wallace. That was close to his best game all year. Awesome last year, has been a bit off the pace this year behind a forward pack that has been dominated, but their forward pack absolutely belted East.
Yeah.
Absolutely belted East, and that's their calling card is being able to dominate up front. Tom Mellor played the best game of footy I've ever seen him play. So there was 2 or 3 guys in that team that have played the best game of footy I've seen them play. And it shows. Whether or not that's them playing their grand final a week early, I'm not too sure, but I can't see that being the case because they were that bloody good.
I mean, the interesting thing is that like at set piece, East still had a ascendancy there. They were getting scrum penalties, their line out still functioned, but even taking that away from UQ, they still managed to, put on that scoreline and be as impressive as they were. And I reckon the difference is in their defensive pressure that they put on. Their line speed was ridiculous. Just East couldn't get anywhere.
No, they absolutely smothered them, as I said earlier on. They found a way to disrupt East that a few teams have been able to do all season. Even with Reece Jackson at fly half, like you would have thought they've got a calm, level head there, but he looked very flustered as well. But that was just because of defensive pressure.
Yeah.
And they are playing so well. They're looking so balanced in their forward pack now. When Pat came on, Pat for Pulii, they started to get some ascendancy at scrum time. There were small things. The way that they're being coached by Elton and Hino and co is just absolutely world class. They're absolutely killing it, and he's got a side underneath him, Hino, that could definitely go the whole way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this coming weekend. So in the prelim final, obviously, GPS lost the major, UQ won the minor, so they'll play each other this weekend for the chance to play as brothers in the grand final. And, these two sides, they only met, a week ago in round 18, and Jeeps put 50 points on UQ. But Pat Murray sort of said after the game on the weekend that the guys got an absolute, dressing down from the coaches after that match. And I think they responded well on the weekend. But, can they carry that for a second week as they go back against the Gallopers?
It's going to be hard. As I said, I mean, Jeeps on the weekend played up against the best team in the competition and gave them an absolute run for their money. And it's not like they were poor. They were absolutely fantastic, Jeeps. So they're in form. They're the form team of the competition. Even though it's finals, it is knockout footy and anything can happen on its day. They're probably the best team in the competition by way of, the past month's worth of footy. So, It's going to be a hard one. They're very fierce rivals. Obviously, that West Side rivalry is pretty strong between the two sides. They play two different brands of footy. If their set piece can start to step up the way they've done it recently, it will go a long way to helping them out. But look, I can't see Jeeps, dropping one this close to the granny.
Well, I reckon potentially what the difference was for Chiefs on the weekend is I think they were missing a bit of overarching for the season. I reckon what their difference has been the impact of their bench. They've had quality guys to come on. So even having someone like a Tom Kibble or a Matt Jekyll come off the bench, whoever swaps out of those guys, then you've got a fresh guy who's hard on the ball, hard at the ruck, and physical to go at them, or you play them in tandem like they have done against Brothers and watch them go to work. But they're missing Kibble on the weekend. So your mate Crispy in commentary told me that there was an incident at the training run the day before the match where he was throwing a pass and Kibble came through to put pressure on him or something like that in D and accidentally copped an elbow to the face and out cold. So they missed him. Not sure if he's going to be back for this weekend or not, and I reckon that was potentially a bit of a difference. And then as well as that, they then lost Michael Richards at the start of the second half.
Yeah,
he went up for can't remember if he went up for a high ball.
Went off for a kick-off.
Yeah.
And he came down hard and slammed his head on the ground hard too. So
he was split on one side. Got some nice photos of him with some, crimson coming down.
That's what you like to see.
Club footy stuff we want to see. But, I think you take a few of those quality guys out of that back row and, they were sort of tested a little bit. But, it's going to be really interesting to see, what Elway does this week at training because he wouldn't have taken that loss lightly.
No, he definitely wouldn't have. I don't even think he takes wins lightly. You could see at half-time, they were up at half-time and he was still giving them an almighty spray. So he's a feisty fella, LV, and I can't help but think he will flog them at training. He's the sort of guy that, whether it's finals footy or round one, doesn't take things too differently. He always likes to make sure he's getting the best out of his players. So one person that I think really stood up was Bernie Nicol.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of raps on him. I've had the pleasure of coaching him a few years ago and seeing him when he was pretty raw down at Logan. And you could see he had something, and he's come from third grade through to Premier grade and was one of the standouts in a bloody good Jeep side on the weekend. So I think that they should be looking for the positives in that. Guys like Twainer Tuolima and Miley Naamo were good again.
Yeah.
Bernie Nicol was great. Josh Collins is a freak.
Mate,
he is sick.
Those 2 tries that he scored, mate, he's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I don't think they can look at that game on the weekend and they can be disappointed, but they shouldn't be upset because it was a bloody good game of footy from their Chargers. So I don't see LV changing too much. I think they've just got to make sure that it doesn't affect their mindset too much.
I reckon what probably also took away from the game a little bit was I don't think they necessarily had the scrum ascendancy they usually have.
No.
I think Brothers sort of figured out that, well, not figured out, it's pretty obvious. If you're up against a Chiefs scrum, you've got to get the ball in and out as quick as you can.
Big time.
And they executed that perfectly.
Big time.
Whether or not the likes of Pat Fapuli and SJ Tamala can, match it with, Ruan Smith, Freddie Burke, Falimi long enough on the weekend to allow for Tate or Yus, whoever gets the starting nod there for halfback to get that ball in and out of the scrum, that could go a long way. Or if Jeeps do get the ascendancy that they have had all season, could be a long day for the students, mate.
I think that's where it's going to be won and lost. I think there's going to be tons of breakdown pressure coming from Matty Jekyll and Dan Gorman and stuff like that. They're really going to try and slow down that Jeeps ball. If they can do that and win that set piece, they should come away with the buttered confection. But we saw on the weekend just how slick Uni are, and if they get fast ball, they will run that team off the park. But it's not the same Jeeps team as we've come accustomed to. They are playing a bit more expansive, and it's really paying dividends. So I don't see it as being as big of a hindrance to them if they do have to play with a bit of width, or it is a bit quicker, because they look a lot fitter this year than they did last year. But yeah, if Jeeps can dominate up front and slow that pill down for UQ, then it could be a long day in the office for the students.
Well, I think, once again, another great game awaits here on Sunday, so make sure you get out this weekend for the prelim finals. Now, we've spoken heaps about Prem grade, mate. What else did you see across the finals weekend, mate, that you liked?
Oh, it was absolutely cracking. I had the chance to come out and watch the women's play on Saturday arvo, then I was here from 9 o'clock. Sunday morning watching the doggies go to work. Didn't work out too well for them in all three teams, but
still in the fight, mate.
they're still in the fight, and
prelims
that's
this
all that
weekend.
really matters. But it was an awesome. There was the atmos. The fact that Brothers had 10 teams and 9 out of the 10 won went a long way to the atmos. I can't help but think it was absolutely pumping. And look, we always give Brothers a bit of grief, but don't get bitter, get better. They are the cornerstone of how every team should be running their program. They are elite in regards to how they've set things up, and it started 5, 6, 7 years ago. I was talking to Schultz about it. They set up that Rorig Colts program, development program, and look at it now. You've got guys that are transitioning from an elite Colts program and within a few years playing high-level Premier Grade footy. So they've done it right, and as much as it irks a lot of people, take note because they are killing it.
Well, mate, I think they're already in the grand final from 3rd grade up to... Actually, it's 4th grade up to 1st grade.
It's 6th grade up to 1st grade. The only team...
That's
I
right.
think it is, yeah. The only team that lost on the weekend was Colts 1 to a bloody good South outfit. That was a good game of footy too. They lost by 2 points, I think it was.
Yeah.
3 points, sorry.
That one went down to the wire.
Yeah. So, mate, they're bloody good. I don't know. Another thing that I noticed as well was how many rude lids there are getting around out there.
Grand final haircuts, mate. Or final series haircuts, mate.
Sam Hicks, mate, that is the best mullet.
Well, mate,
He's
had that all year. He's been
time.
He's been prepping for the finals.
Oh, hell yeah.
Whereas I know East 4th grade side, mate, there was a barber shop open on Friday for guys to go and get some rude lids done. And I think they were all trying to mirror Sam Hicks, but didn't quite nail it. And unfortunately, mate, it was a pretty rough weekend for East. Not just in Prem grade. We lost our 4th grade final, which was a bit devastating.
You're right, mate.
Credit to Jeeps in that one. They hung in the fight, and then lost 6th grade at the buzzer to Brothers. They were killing it in that grade too. So, but we got 3rd through. So one team still flying the Tigers flag. And then you mentioned Colts just before. The Colts 2 final. This has been the chat of the office here at Ballymore for most of the week so far. So in the Colts 2 final, Bond were up, and I think basically all they had to do was kick the ball into touch to win it, and they've cooked the kick. South have regathered. I think they went phase, scored 1 through the GF, and Bond have got to come back and do the prelim weekend this weekend.
It stings, eh? Oh, man, it stings so hard as well. And that's the only Bond side that's in the competition, isn't it? So they had a chance to go straight through to the granny and absolutely kill it, and they've cooked it in a big way. So
yeah, but I mean that's finals footy for you.
It is.
But I tell you what, a team that really stood up on the weekend and impressed, the Brothers women. Now, they haven't won a grand final since 2001. I spoke to Macca.
The grand final?
Yeah, a grand final. So they haven't won a grand final since 2001. So it's been a long time between drinks. So they've won the minor semi against Jeeps this weekend, which was an upset. They'll play West this weekend in the prelim for the chance to play Sunnybank next week. But
looks like they're going to have another year not winning that grand final, huh?
Well, mate, that's another interesting one to talk about as well. Like, in terms of the women, everyone was saying that, this is when Sunnybank's vulnerable because all the Wallaroos girls are obviously in Perth ahead of their test against the Black Ferns coming up this weekend. So, Sunnybank are missing some key girls, as are West's, girls like Sarah Riordan, but they still came through at the goods.
Mate,
West didn't put any points on them.
That Sunnybank women's side is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Their skill level is so good. Their ability to build phases, their ability to spot gaps and just maintain pressure on the opposition. I mean, West weren't bad.
Yeah.
They should have scored points on them. That's true. Their defense was great. But, mate, Sunnybank were missing 8 of their best players, and they were still so good. Their ability, just as I said, just to be able to maintain possession and work through patterns and phases. There's a reason why they're undefeated over 4 years.
Yeah, no. Well, guys, once again, Prem Rugby finals, they're not just about Hospital Challenge Cup, the first grade. They're about the whole competition. And if you're looking for some quality footy come down and check out the girls' prelim final this weekend and the grand final the following weekend. It's the last game on Saturday, so great chance to come down and have a few afternoon beverages at Ballymore and rip in. But I mean, overall on the weekend, mate, bumper crowd, probably driven mostly by the brothers in everyone.
Yeah.
My good mate Camilo from 3rd and 4th grade was in fine form up in the stands. But yeah, mate, finals footy, gotta love it.
It's absolutely fantastic. It's the best time of the year. It's very bittersweet, obviously. You get to come out to Ballymore 3 weeks in a row and experience just what makes club rugby so good. But then you do realise that in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be stinging for a bit of content on the weekends to watch a bit of code. So it sucks, but it's the best time of the year. It's awesome.
It is. And I think, like, it's safe to say, I'm pretty sure we still got all the clubs still represented. So North and Bond only had one team in. And
yep, both in it still.
They're both in it still for prelims this weekend. As we mentioned, West, they've got 3 teams still in the prelims. So odd to say that hopefully one of those teams gets through. The Tigers, we've gone from 4 teams down to 1.
Stinger.
Up to 3rd grade. And, obviously, brothers, mate, they're in everything.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about them. Yeah, mate, it's going to be an absolutely, bumper couple of weeks to come.
Yeah, I can't wait. I remember last year was literally the most congested and entertaining and, tightly contested season of Premier grade footy at the very least that we'd seen in the better part of a decade or so. And this year we had so much resting on it. We had such high hopes, and it looked like there were going to be some teams that absolutely blew it out of the park, but now it's condensed up. But it's not just in Premier grade that's happening. It's across all grades. Obviously, brothers are killing it across the grades, but you've got West have got the best turnout in finals they've had in, I think, 15 or 18 years or something like that. Obviously, North's got their lower grades in there. South's Premier Colts last year, they were not much chop in the slightest, and now they're minor premiers and straight through to the granny. You've got clubs that are really on the rebound, and you're starting to see a lot of the fruits that there have been people putting systems in place from their Colts program or through their grades and stuff like that, and putting a bit more emphasis across the entire club, and it's awesome to see. So it's exciting, and it's a very good thing to see for rugby, especially in Queensland.
All right, folks, well, we mentioned it a few times this episode, but obviously the final series isn't just about Hospital Challenge Cup, the top grade. It's about all levels of Queensland Premier Rugby. So get out to Ballymore across Saturday and Sunday and get around grassroots rugby. The key thing to mention, the prelim final weekend and the grand final weekend are ticketed, so you can get your tickets online. You'll see links on our social media over the coming days. You'll save a few bucks buying online, as well as time at the gate when you arrive at the venue, which is pretty key. Now, Jay, which games are you looking forward to this weekend, mate?
All the ones involving the doggies, reserve grade, 3rd grade, and of course the women's. So all going to be absolutely cracking games of footy, and I can't wait to see hopefully 3 doggy sides in the granny next weekend.
Well, mate, East v West on Sunday morning in the Juice Weeper game, mate. So we'll see you down here.
All right, loser buys the other a carton.
I'm pretty poor at the moment, mate.
So am I, man. I'm not drinking either.
All right, folks. Finals continue this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We'll be here. We'll see you down at Ballymore.